לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד השמיענו אל המיוחד אדוני אחד ושמו אחד לשם ותפארת ולתהילה לך דודי לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה
לקראת שבת לכו ונחת כי היא מקור הברכה מראש מקדם לסוכה
סוף נעשה במחשבה תחילה לך דודי לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה
התעוררי התעוררי כי בעורך קומי אורי 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 שתעברי כבוד
אדוני עלייך נגלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה ובצהלה תוך אמוני עם סגולה בואי חלה בואי חלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה
We remain standing, turning to page 28 for our call to worship.
In the rising of the sun we remember, in the blowing of the wind we remember, in the opening of buds we remember, we remember.
We
need strength, we remember. When we're lost and sick at heart, we remember. When we've joys we yearn to share, we remember. We remember. So long as we live, they too shall live. They are now a part of us. They are now a part of us. As we remember, we remember. We remember. We remember. Shabbat Shalom. We're going to invite you to take your seats in the sanctuary so that we can begin our service together. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. You can sing that. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Ma tovu, ma tovu, ohalecha Yaakov, Yaakov. Ma tovu, ma tovu, mishknotecha Yisrael, Yisrael. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la.
Shabbat Shalom. So nice to be here with all of you in our sanctuary and with all of you who are watching from home in our sanctuary. We're glad to be together on this beautiful Shabbat morning. For those of us that were lucky to walk outside in Manhattan today, it's just such a beautiful, crisp morning. And maybe there's a little extra sense of the beauty, not only from the weather, but because we're going to be leading the service with two extraordinary young men this morning. I'm Mo Saul, happy to be on the bema this morning with our senior cantor, Daniel Mutlu, and Rabbi Ari Lord. And I'd like Aaron and Ben to stand up next to me because I wanted to check in with you both. And also make sure you know our co-leaders of the service. How are you feeling, Aaron?
Good.
All right, we have a good from Aaron. And how are you feeling today, Ben? All right, good. Well, we have been working together for months, preparing for the service, and I know you're ready. You know you're ready. We're looking forward a little later to having you help us lead. So you can return to your seats. We'll be using the prayer books that are in your pews, or if you're in the front row, underneath your pews that say Shabbat on them. As you heard from the opening song, there'll be Hebrew. We'll be reading in English. We'll be going la 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 as we did in that opening song too. So if you're able to open your hearts, open your mouths, and enjoy this prayers and this worship together, enjoying the chance to just take a break from the busyness of our weeks and to enter Shabbat together. We're going to turn to page 78 for the words of Elohai Neshama. It's a prayer that teaches that within each of us is a soul that is pure.
Elohai Shama Shenatata Bi Tehorahi, Elohai Neshama Shenatata Bi Tehorahi. Try that. Elohai Neshama Shenatata Bi Tehorahi, Elohai Neshama Shenatata Bi Tehorahi, Elohai Neshama Shenatata Bi Tehorahi, Elohai Neshama Shenatata Bi Tehorahi. just getting warmed up. We've sung a few songs together, and we have thanked God for our souls, for our breath. And now we're going to turn to that same breath, and we're going to sing together this last Psalm, 150, and you can find that on page 100. And you'll see in this psalm that we are all given the ability to praise God. We're all given the ability to say thank you for this beautiful day, for this moment that we get to share together. And we do that with one simple word, and that is hallelujah. It's a word we've all heard before, but one that we should say many, many times over and over again so we could really get it into our bones and into our voices and our breaths. So I'm going to teach you this melody. It's really simple, and you can repeat after me just so we can really get it. It sounds like this. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Try that. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Beautiful. Then it goes like this. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Try that. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Then it repeats again. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Try that. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Let's try it all together. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. That's it. Let's try it again. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Here's the first verse. Hallelujah.
We're going to move ahead in our Sidurim, in our prayer books, to page 108. 108 for Baruch Hu, our call to worship. I'll invite you to please rise.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. HaMevorach, HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Please be seated. On page 111 at the top of the page, let's read together. In the beginning, even then, a new light was sown for the righteous, a promise that your light would become the catalyst, first for order and then for hope. Author of language and light, Help us to use words as you have, to cast light into dark waters and draw out justice and truth. Baruch Ata Adonai, Yotzer HaMe'orot.
On the top of page 110, we'll recite these words in Hebrew a few times for our Yotzer prayer. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Yotzer or uvorei choshech Oseh shalom uvorei et hakol Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Yotzer or uvorei choshech Oseh shalom uvorei et hakol Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Yotzer or uvorei choshech Oseh shalom uvorei et hakol Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Yotzer or uvorei choshech Oseh shalom uvorei et hakol Oseh shalom uvorei et hakol. We'll make our way now to page 114. You'll see spread across those 2 pages the words of our Shema, these incredible words which declare the oneness of God. There are only a few words, so we're going to try to meditate on the English words and sing those together so that we can prepare ourselves for the full impact, for the full weight of these words in the Hebrew. So we'll sing together, Hear, O Israel. Hear, O Israel, Adonai, our God is one. Hear, O Israel. Hear, O Israel, Adonai, Adonai, our God is one. Hear, O Israel, hear, O Israel, Adonai, our God is one. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem, Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם להיות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
On page 121, we read responsively, "The eternal truth is that you alone are God, and there is none else." So the responsiveness comes from you all.
And if I get to the right page,
Well, that
then I'll
helps too.
help
Let's
everyone
try it
out.
one more time. You're all on notice now. The eternal truth is that you alone are God, and there is none else.
May the righteous of all nations rejoice in your love and exult in your justice.
Let them beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks.
Let nation not lift up sword against nation, nor learn war anymore.
You shall not hate your brother or sister in your heart.
The stranger that sojourns with you shall be accepted as your equal, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt.
Why do you crush my people and oppress the poor, asks God.
We know that the Eternal One defends the poor and upholds the rights of the needy.
Praise to God Most High.
Blessed is God and deserving of blessing. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Ya la la la, ya la 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 la. Ya la la la, ya la 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 la. Ya la la la, ya la 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 la. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai. Mi kamocha ledavar kodesh. Ora tehilot osifele. Ya la la la, ya la 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 la. Ya la la la, ya la 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 la. Ya la la la, ya la 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 la. Shira chadasha, shibechu geulim, leshimecha על שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו, והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. לי, 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 יא לי, 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 יא לי, לי, יא לי, 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 יא לי, 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 לי.
We continue with some time for silent prayer and personal meditation to prepare us for tefillah.
והגיון ליבי לפניך אדוני צורי וגואלי עושה שלום We now turn to page 124 for our tefillah, and we rise. Adonai, sefatai tiftach, ufi yagid tehilatecha. Open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor VaNorah, העליון, אומר חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי מתים, אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים באמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בגבורות ומדומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים. נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשממרו, ככתוב על יד נביאך. וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות. מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו, הוא מלכנו, הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו, ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם. אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור. הללויה, 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 הללויה,
The light of the Torah shines forth from Zion. Adonai's teachings flow from Jerusalem.
This scroll has nurtured our people from Sinai to today. It teaches us love and justice, hope and peace.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo. Gadlul Adonai iti, uneromema Shemo yachdav.
We're going to invite the congregation now to be seated, except for Aaron and Ben's parents and grandparents, who will invite up to the bima. Oh my gosh, isn't this beautiful right here, what we're looking at right now? Our bar mitzvah and parents and grandparents, Lador Vador, from generation to generation on this very special morning. Aaron and Ben, we're about to give into your arms this scroll, this Torah, and there's a very beloved story, for me at least, but not just me, of a ancient rabbi, Rabbi Hillel, who was approached by a sassy young man who was a teenager, who was not someone who was studying the Torah. Rabbi Hillel led the greatest Torah academy in his day. And the sassy young man said to me, Rabbi Hillel, if you can tell me everything that's in this Torah while standing on one leg, I will enroll in your academy. And he expected the rabbi to shoo him away and get out of here, but instead, Rabbi Hillel stood on one leg and said, what is hateful to you, do not do to any other person. This is the entirety of the whole Torah. All the rest is commentary. The young man was so taken by this, he says, where can I sign up right now? Well, this young man was quite sassy and a little bit focused on himself, but that is not the case for you both. You know this essential teaching of the Torah, of kindness and goodness. I know this because I know you. Your families know this because they know you. You have already embraced the core element of what this Torah is all about, and as you go forward as bar mitzvah, we'll encourage you to continue to embrace it and make it core to who you are. We pass these Torah scrolls to you from generation to generation with so much love.
You are gifts and you are blessings. You are history in song. You are hope and you are healing. You are learning to be strong. L'tov Adon nagid lecha. L'tov Adon, we protect this chain from generation to generation. L'tov Adon, these lips will praise your name.
Picture this, a city with so much evil and corruption that the only answer is to destroy the city and all of its inhabitants. This week's Torah portion, Vayera, starts with God informing Abraham that the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah must be destroyed for their grave sins. Abraham pleads for the lives of any righteous people living in Sodom, including his nephew Lot and his family. After some masterful negotiation, Abraham convinces God that if the angels can find just 10 righteous people in the entire city, that God should spare Sodom from destruction. Unfortunately, this is much easier said than done. 2 angels are sent to the city to try to identify the 10 righteous people, but upon their arrival, they're attacked by an angry mob and ultimately find only Lot and his family to be righteous. They tell Lot's family to flee in order to be spared when they destroy Sodom. It is shocking to think that there was so much evil within the city of Sodom that they couldn't even find 10 righteous people. The real question, though, is what led to the city being so unwelcoming? Have you heard the expression, what's mine is mine and what's yours is mine? This is how the people of Sodom acted, a group of people so selfish that they could have something that someone else desperately needed and still wouldn't share it. This would be like already having both doses of your COVID vaccine and having dozens of extras, but not letting anyone else have them. Another answer of what led to such a horrible culture in Sodom is even more extreme. The Talmud teaches that the people of Sodom made a law stipulating that anyone who helped the poor would be burnt to death. This means that the city went beyond not choosing to help the poor, but they'd be seriously punished if they did. Bad behavior breeds more bad behavior. And ultimately, Sodom became a city with 0 positive influences. What we would deem to be unacceptable behavior towards each other became normal in their society. Reading about the people of Sodom, I'm both disappointed by their behavior and sympathetic to the fact that they didn't have any kind, nurturing people to guide them. It is hard to learn to behave well without positive influences. Thankfully, I'm very fortunate to have many wonderful influences in my life who don't just tell me what is right to do, but show me. My parents have always been welcoming, inclusive, and kind to others. In fact, despite getting up at 5 a.m., one of our favorite family activities is serving fellow New Yorkers who are homeless and hungry as part of Central's breakfast program. And as you all know, I play a lot of baseball, which means I've seen many questionable calls. My parents have coached me that even so, the umpire still deserves a cold bottle of water after standing behind the plate for hours helping my team play the game we love. My parents aren't the only positive influences in my family. My brothers taught me how valuable it is to be able to laugh at oneself. My grandparents have instilled the importance of family, hard work, and not giving up when things don't come easily. They've also modeled for me how critical it is to maintain a good sense of humor through it all. Today, as I become a bar mitzvah and reflect upon my Torah portion and the past 13 years, I'm realizing just how fortunate I am. Thankfully, my life is the complete opposite of Sodom. Not only do I have amazing positive family influences, but I'm a part of other amazing communities like Horace Mann, Central Synagogue, and Brant Lake. As I enter Jewish adulthood, I will do my best to be a positive force and help others in all of these areas. I'll be friendly and welcome those who are new or in need of a friend. I will help Alex with his homework, and I'll make sure to reply to my grandparents' texts. And Mom, I promise to walk our dog when you finally let me get one. Ben, I'm so happy to share this special day with you, and to all of my family and friends, both those who are here in person and watching on the live stream, thank you all, and Shabbat Shalom. My Torah portion is taken from Parsha Vayera from the book of Genesis, chapter 18, verses 23 to 33. For my first Aliyah, I call upon my aunts and uncles, Eric and Alex Fabricant, Joey and Holly Sorokin, and Rabbi Dana Sorokin and Rafi Roan. For my second Aliyah, I call upon my parents and grandparents, Harlan and Brian Sorokin, Sarah and Charles Fabricant, Lee McLaughlin, and Jerry Sorokin.
So you guys come up right next to Aaron. Hold on a second, we'll get the other group here first. Right in the middle. Dana, can you hold the eights, please? Yep. Where are you going? Where's that? Gorgeous. Come on now. We're waiting. All right. Okay, good. So, I'm sorry if you guys can kiss the Torah and then the blessings over there. Okay, it's actually right there. Vayigash, yeah. I'd say we'll let them do the blessing first. When you're ready, you can go ahead.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamrach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol hamim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Nicely done, everyone.
Amen. Vayigash Avraham, Vayomar, Ha'af tisbeh, Tzadik im Rasha, Ulai yesh, Hamishim Tzadikim, Beto ha'ir, Ha'af tisbeh, Velo tisa lemakom, Leman, Hamishim Tzadikim, Asher bikirba, Halila leha, Me'asot kadevar hazeh, Lehami tzadik im rasha, v'hayachat tzadik karasha, halilah la hashofet kol haaretz, lo ya'aseh mishpat.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
You guys are going to switch places. You'll get a hug from him in a minute. I agree, you're doing amazing. So you guys move a little bit over here so everyone can come.
They're going to do the blessing first, then I'll show you exactly.
All right. So, we'll count to three. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamrach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
One down. I right there it is. See it? Right there.
Amen. Vayomer Adonai im emsa visdom hamishim tzadikim beto ha'ir venasati lechol hamakom ba'avuram vaya'an Avraham vayomar hinena ho'alti ledaber el Adonai ve'anohi afar va'efer ulai yatzerun hamishim hatzadikim hamisha hatashrit bahamisha et kol ha'ir vayomer lo ashrit imamsa sham ba'im bahamisha vayosef od ledaber elav vayomar ulai imatun sham arba'im vayomer lo e'aseh ba'avur ha'arba'im.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah temed v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Get a hug from this amazing bar mitzvah and mazel tov to you all. Congratulations.
Aaron, that was amazing. 2 aliyot down, 1 to go. And you are showing us all what it really takes. And something that really stuck with me from your devar was that you said, don't tell me. Don't tell me how to be right in this world. Show me. And you're showing us today. And I remember when we talked about that moment that you become B'nai Mitzvah, and we said that it's really up for debate. Some say it's when you turn 13. Some say it's when you read from the Torah. And I remember what you said. You said that it's when you put on the tallis, because when you put on that tallis, you show the rest of the community that you are ready, that you have taken this upon yourself, and it's literally on your shoulders. And that is why we are so happy today. That's why we're so proud, because this Torah now is on your shoulders, and you are carrying it. You are taking it to the next generation and beyond. And with your beautiful teaching, with your beautiful chanting, with the seriousness that you've approached all of this and the care that you've approached all of this, we know that the Torah is not just teetering on your shoulders, but it's firmly there, and it's there coming from a place of love and deep responsibility. So we are very, very, very happy and proud to call you to the Torah now as a bar mitzvah for the very first time. Yamod, 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 ha-bar mitzvah, Aaron Ephraim ben Mordechai Mendel v'Hindeliba.
Baruch Adonai ha-vorah. Wait, oh, I'm sorry. Baruch et Adonai ha-vorah.
Baruch Adonai Havarach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamerach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bahar banu mikol ha'amim venatan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Yes.
Wait,
How about Omer?
yeah, no, it's here.
I got it.
Vayomer ana ihar ladonai vadabera ulai imatun sham shaloshim. Vayomer lo e'aseh imamsa sham shaloshim. Vayomer hinena ho'alti ledaber el Adonai ulai imatun sham esrim. Vayomer lo ashrit ba'vur ha'arba'in. Vayomer ana ihar ladonai vadabera ahapam ulai imatun sham esrim. Vayomer lo ashrit ba'vur ha'arba'in. Vayelech Adonai kasher kila ledaber el Abraham ve'Avraham shavlim komo. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'hayei olam nata betoheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yeah, but yeah, I'll get it.
Okay.
All right, step up front.
All right. I will continue with chapter 19, verses 15 through 26. For my first Aliyah, I call upon my grandparents, Cookie and Brian Schulman, my grandparents, Myra and Larry Lawson, and my mom and dad, Lisa and Eric Greenwald.
Come on up.
For my second Aliyah, I call upon my aunt and uncle, Beth and Sammy Benelul, my aunt and uncle, Steve and Helene Greenwald, and my aunt and uncle, Eric and Roxana Schulman.
So you guys, first group is going to stand over here. I just want to say, Ben, that you're surrounded by a beautiful family right now who will help you with the aliyot. We're also feel a connection to your grandpa Buddy, who we know is kvelling for you this very, very special day as you become bar mitzvah. All right, I've got to find this spot. Hold on. One second. Did I write it down here somewhere? No, I thought I wrote it down the page. No, okay, 1 second. Okay, so I think it's, I feel like it was like right around this column here. Hold on. Here it is. Okay. All right. We found the spot. I know where it is. So you guys can come around. We're going to do the blessing together. That's okay. I'll help you guys. Ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMavarach.
Baruch Adonai Hamarach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMavarach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amin v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Uchmo hashachar Allah vayitzu hamalachim bilot leimor kum kach et ishtecha ve'et shtei benotecha hanimsaot pen tisafeh bahavon ha'ir vayit mama vayachaziku ha'anashim biyado uviyad ishto uviyad shtei v'notav b'chemlat Adonai alehem vayotzi uhu vayanichu michutz la'ir vayehi chehotziam otam hachutza vayomer himalet al nafshecha al tabit acharecha ve'al ta'amod b'chol hakikar Hahara Himalate Pentisafe Vayomer Lot Alehem Alna Adonai.
Really great. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen.
Down there. Okay, you'll switch places with these beautiful folks. You'll come on over here. You're doing great. You can do the blessing first. Okay, everyone. Sorry. The words are up here. We're going to do start in 1, 2, 3. Baruch hu et Adonai hambarach.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai hambarach leolam vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torah. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Hine na matzah avdecha chen be'einecha vatagdel chasdecha shama no asher asita imadi pentit bakani hara'a vamati. Hine na ha'ir hazot krova lanus shahama vehihi mitzar imaltana shama halo mitzar hi utechi nafshi. Vayomer elav hine nasati fanecha gaham ladavar hazeh levilti hofchi et ha'ir asher dibarta maher imalet shama ki lo uchal la'asot davar ad bo'acha shama al kain karashem ha'ir zoar.
All right. 1, 2, 3.
Baruch
atah Adonai.
You're up next.
Yeah, I know.
V'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen. All right, give a hug to these beautiful people. We love you so much. You're doing so great. These guys too. You can be seated now. Those are all done. Amazing, buddy. Amazing. All right, turn towards the camera. Say a few words to you.
So, Ben, now your time has come to be called up to the Torah for the first time by your Hebrew name, and you just scream team player to me. You're so gracious, you're so kind. The way that Aaron came back up to his seat and you came down and you both shook hands, you're part of a team. This is not about one person. This is about the continuity, right? And not just for the future, but this team of your family that has passed the Torah down to you from generation to generation. And at this time, when we call you up by your Hebrew name, we actually recall and we remember that you were named after your grandfather Ben, and it's a beautiful thing to think of the continuity of bringing that joy and bringing the life of your grandfather to this moment. And we know that he is very much with you in spirit at this time that you're being called to the Torah. So we are filled with joy, we're filled with pride to be able to watch you take this Torah as your own today, and we're going to call you now for the first time as a bar mitzvah. Yamod, 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 ha-bar mitzvah, ben Zion, ben Chaim, Nisanel, v'leron alibi.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai notein ha'torah.
Amen.
Hashemesh yatsa al haaretz vilot batso ara va'adonai himtir al Sidom ve'al Amorah gofrit va'esh me'et Adonai min hashamayim Vayahafoch et ha'arim ha'el ve'et kol ha'kikar ve'et kol yoshvei ha'arim ve'tze'emach ha'adama Vatabet ishto me'acharav vatehi Netziv Melach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chaye olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai notein ha'torah.
Amen.
Please rise.
Take a step to the side. Wow. Come on next to me for a second. Beautiful, beautiful job. That's great.
Thanks. V'zot ha'torah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai beyad Moshe. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la.
Please be seated.
Have you ever been in a life or death situation? This is the type of situation that my portion's main character, Lot, his wife, and his daughters are in. Angels come to visit Lot and tell him to leave his town, Sodom, because the people in the town are evil, and the town will be destroyed by God. Despite being told that the town will be destroyed and that he and his family must flee, Lot is indecisive about leaving. As a result, the angels take Lot and his family by the hand and rush them out. Lot is then told not to look behind him and that he must go to the hills or he'll be swept away. Lot is once again indecisive and responds by refusing to flee to the hills, even saying that the evil may take him and he shall die. Lot then asks if he instead could hide in the tiny town of Zoar. The angels are very favorable towards Lot and accept his idea to escape to Zoar. As Lot and his family enter Zoar, the sun rises and the eternal God rains fire on Sodom and Gomorrah, and the cities are destroyed. The story ends when, despite finding safety, Lot's wife looks back towards Sodom and Gomorrah and is turned into a pillar of salt. What I learned from my portion is that it is important to have a clear game plan and to follow it. Also, when confronted with danger, you must act decisively for your future and not look back on the past. This is shown throughout my Torah portion. For example, Lot and the angels make a game plan when he is told that he and his family must leave. Despite the danger, Lot is very indecisive and under duress. Then, as Lot and his family are fleeing, they are so distraught and panicked that in clear violation of the directions given to them by the angels, Lot's wife looks back and is turned to salt. Because she failed to follow the plan for their future and instead looks back towards her past, Lot's wife dies. Basketball is something in my life where I can relate to the lessons learned from Lot's story. Since I was 9 years old, I've been playing travel basketball. Throughout my experience playing, there has been one common similarity between each team: the need for a well-thought-out plan and strategy. This includes things such as well-designed plays, defensive schemes, and player isolations. Whether you are planning strategy for your team or preparing for your opponent, sticking to your preparation and planning is vital. That being said, there have been more than a few times where the plan didn't work out as I expected. I've learned that instead of dwelling on past mistakes, it is best to concentrate on improving the future. It does no good to concentrate on a bad play, but rather to work towards making a better play in the next opportunity. Also, I'm pretty sure my coaches would bench me if I turned into a pillar of salt. In conclusion, the story of Lot and his family can help teach myself and others an important lesson about making a plan, sticking to it, and not dwelling on the past. This is especially true when faced with serious situations. I hope to never be in the situation Lot is in. However, I do expect to be in many important scenarios. And when I am, I'll strive to make the best game plan possible so that both myself, my family, and my teammates are in a position to succeed while keeping an eye towards a successful future. Thank you. The Haftorah for this week is taken from a book of 2 Kings. I will be reading from chapter 4, verses 1 through 5. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar binviim tovim v'ratzah v'divreihem hane'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai b'Torah u'v'Moshe avdo u'v'Yisrael amo u'v'nviei ha'emet v'tzedek.
Amen.
Ve'isha ha'achat Minashe v'nei hanevim tza'aka el Elisha le'mor avdecha ishi meit ve'ata yadata ki avdecha haya yarei et Adonai v'ha noshe ba la'akachat et shnei yiladai lo la'avadim. Vayomer eleha Elisha ma eselach hagidi li ma yesh lach babayit vatomer ein leshivchatcha chol babayit ki im asuch shaman vayomer lechi sha'alilach kelim min hachutz me'et kol shchenayich kelim reikim al tam iti uvat visagart hadelet ba'adech uvad banayich v'yatzakt al kol hakelim ha'ele v'hamalei ta'asi v'atelech me'ito v'tizgor hadelet ba'adah uve'ad baneha eim magishim eleha vehihi motzaket.
I will continue with chapter 4, verses 32 through 35. Vayavo Elisha habaita vahine hanar meit mushkav amitato vayavo vayiskor hadelet be'ad shenehem veyitpalel el Adonai vayal vayishkav ahayeled vayasem piva piv ve'enav a'enav ve'chapav akapav vayikar alav vayahom basar hayaled vayashov vayeleh babayit ahat hena ve'ahat hena vayal vayikar alav vayizorer hanar ad sheva pe'amim vayivkaf hanar et enav. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam tzukkohu alamim Sadiq bechol hadarot ha'el ha'ne'eman ha'amir ve'oseh ha'medabir u'mekayim shekol devarav emet v'tzedek al ha'torah v'al ha'avodah v'al hanvi'im v'al yom ha'shabbat hazeh senatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu likdusha v'limnuha lechavod ultifaret al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modam la uvarhim ota yitbarach simcha b'fi kol hai tamid le'olam va'ed Baruch Ata Adonai
Baruch Shemo.
Mikadesh HaShabbat.
Amen. All right, beautiful job. We're going to call Ben back down here to join you, Aaron. And the two of you started off the service feeling pretty good. And I just wanted to check in with you now to see how you're feeling after leading us so beautifully and completing everything. So how do you feel, Aaron?
Definitely better. It's done. I did it.
Definitely better.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. We're with you. Yes, Ben?
Bro, I'm ecstatic.
Ecstatic.
I'm just happy to be finished.
Okay. Well, I want you to look around in this space, and here we have your family and your friends, but it's also a room filled with joy for the two of you, with so much pride, and we are about to burst because we want to celebrate with you, and this is that moment. So we're going to ask everybody to rise, and we're going to sing Siman Tov together. Siman Tov, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, Siman Tov, Siman Tov, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, Siman Tov, Siman Tov, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, Siman Tov, Yehei Lanu, Yehei Lanu, Yehei Lanu, Olechol Yisrael, Yehei Lanu, Yehei Lanu, Olechol Yisrael, Yehei Lanu, Yehei Lanu, Olechol Yisrael, Yehei Lanu, Yehei Lanu, Olechol Yisrael.
Please be seated. So when I was a kid, I would, if I was lucky, my family and I would go to restaurants that had these, I would say, disposable placemats. And if I was really lucky, these disposable placemats would have like games on them. Do you know what I'm talking about? Did we go to the same restaurants when we were kids? And one of the games on these placemats is take a look at these two pictures and determine what's different between one and the other. Do you recognize this game? So it was one of my favorite activities, besides hanging out with my family, of course, at these nice restaurants. Maybe not so nice restaurants. And this week's portion has ability to play this game. There's actually a lot of stories. Our B'nai Mitzvah know there's so many stories about our patriarch and matriarch Abraham and Sarah in this Torah portion. And we've heard about one of them that I want to talk about this morning. That's the story of God telling Abraham that God is going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah because it's filled with such terrible behavior and terrible people. And Abraham says, as you taught us, Aaron, Abraham says, well, what if we find 50 people that are in the city that are innocent? Would you destroy the cities, God? And God says no. And Abraham says, well, with all due respect, I'm paraphrasing here, God, would you consider not destroying if we find 45? And God says, no, if you find 45, we're not going to destroy the city. So Abraham has this respectful conversation. You could say it's a negotiation. The Eitz Chaim commentary says it's a challenge, that Abraham's actually challenging God to keep to the standard that God is setting for humanity, this moral standard of making sure that you're not throwing away the innocent with the guilty. And in general, this section of the Torah is characterized by our commentators having great respect for Abraham going up to God and saying, God, how about you reconsider this? Like, think about that idea that a person is saying to God, will you reconsider the plan, God? And God has this engaging conversation with Abraham and does reconsider the plan. Another commentator says that Abraham is actually demanding that God be merciful. And the Talmud teaches that the descendants of Abraham are characterized by three traits. Based upon this story, the three traits are a capacity for kindness, having a sense of morality, and a commitment to do what's right. So these are just a kind of a little taste of the picture and its commentary of Abraham negotiating with God to not destroy Sodom and Gomorrah if they can find, in the end, 10 innocent and righteous people. So that's story number one I want to have on the placemat. The second story is a story which we haven't talked about today. It's part of this week's Torah portion. It's known as the Akedah, the binding of Isaac. God says, again, I'm going to paraphrase, to Abraham, take your precious son, Isaac, and take him to a place I'll show you, a mountain, and ritually sacrifice him, kill him in connection to me, to show yourself as worshiping me. And Abraham gathers a bunch of his staff and Isaac, and they travel for 3 days. They eventually get to this mountain, and Abraham and Isaac go up alone, and Isaac says to Abraham, Dad, I see we have the wood, and I see we have the fire maker they were going to like do Isaac's thinking they were going to do sort of like a barbecue in recognition of God. This is how our ancients connected to God. But where's the ram? Where's the ram that we're going to sacrifice to God? And Abraham says God's going to provide it. But actually, Abraham binds, this is the word Akedah, actually ties Isaac with some sort of like rope onto this sort of like barbecue pit, this altar, and raises a knife above Isaac's head, about to kill him, until an angel says, Abraham, don't even dare you touch this child. You're not meant to in the end, kill Isaac to connect to God. In fact, there's a ram that's caught in a thicket, and they sacrifice that ram. And so I say to you, what is different with these two stories of Abraham, these two pictures? Any thoughts? I'm going to invite people just to, it's particularly with regard to Abraham's behavior. What's different between these two stories? All right, Eric, I agree. That's the thing that jumps out at me first. Abraham's willing to negotiate on behalf of these cities filled of strangers. And you could say, okay, his nephew was there. Okay, he knew his nephew. But still, thousands and thousands of other people. Abraham goes, really, if you look at the story, Abraham doesn't hesitate. He goes right to negotiating with God. And yet, Eric, when it comes to his own son, Abraham just heads off to the mountain and even binds his own son to the altar. So some commentaries I wanted to share with you about this. The story about, the second story begins with the idea that, not the idea, it says, God put Abraham to the test. That's what the Torah says. And Maimonides says, God tested Abraham precisely because God knew Abraham would pass the test. Abraham's faith would shine like a beacon and be a sign to the nations. That's what Maimonides says. And Rashi, these are two of our greatest commentators, quotes a midrash from Genesis Rabbah that explains that it only appeared to Abraham that God asked him to sacrifice Isaac, because to actually say to Abraham, sacrifice Isaac, would not square with the fundamental laws of morality. God said to Abraham, saying, I didn't say sacrifice Isaac, I said bring Isaac up. If you look at the Hebrew, the word for sacrifice could also mean to come up. It's the same word that we use to call people to the Torah, the same root, to aliyah, to come up. So Rashi quotes a midrash that says, no, God didn't say sacrifice Isaac. God said bring Isaac up to the mountain, and God says, now that you brought him up, you can bring him down. This is what I call rabbinic gymnastics, because I think our sages, these are just some comments, are trying to respect, particularly our older sages, are trying to explain how could Abraham, in this one picture, stand up for the innocence that he doesn't even know, and not stand up in the second picture for his own son. And more modern commentators, including our Rabbi Emeritus, Rabbi Peter Rubenstein, says, without any details, that Abraham failed. He failed his own child. He did not protect his child. And he condemns Abraham directly for this behavior, and so do I. So there's a lot that we can look at these two stories. One thing I think is important to add, that many modern, I would say, many modern professors and I would say rabbis too, who know who know the ways of the peoples that surrounded our ancestors long ago. They were aware that child sacrifice was common amongst the neighbors of the Israelites long ago, and they say, these professors and other people who know of the history of ancient Israel, that this is really a story, the second story, about how the Israelites were not going to ever do child sacrifice. It's not really a story about morality or failing the test of being a parent. It's meant to be a story that says we Israelites don't sacrifice our children. Abraham comes close, God says no. For any of our ancestors who read the story, they were going to say, oh, we're not like the other people in our neighborhood. We don't sacrifice our children. That's why the story is in the Torah like it is, and that, I think, has some merit. But the challenge is that that's not in the Torah. There's no asterisk on the bottom of the Torah saying, oh, by the way, this story's here to serve as a polemic against child sacrifice. It's just there, just like the first story. So then we have this challenge, and it's a challenge I gave Aaron and Ben, and we give really to all of us, is what do we do with these stories in the Torah? Particularly stories where one is presenting, as we would think, at least from our modern perspective, the right way to behave. Abraham standing up to power and fighting for righteous immorality, and an inappropriate way to behave. Abraham failing protection of his own son. And I think, Aaron and Ben, that's what we're asking you as bar mitzvah. To not just be a student saying to the teacher, I read the story, I filled out the answer to the homework, and not think about it, but just, we want you to la'asok b'divrei Torah, to engage in the study of Torah, to look at these stories and mine meaning from them. And you've already done that so beautifully in your divrei Torah this morning. You looked at these ancient stories and you took lessons from them, which we hope will help you bring more blessing and goodness into the world. And I would say the same for all of us, that we can take a lesson from these stories. You can still look at the second story and say, okay, this is a story about how our ancients should not sacrifice children, but also this is a story about how we as protectors, whether we're parents or friends, need to make sure we never put our loved ones in a position like Abraham put Isaac. That we're supposed to do exactly the opposite of what Abraham does in that story. We can do that too. And we can also take lessons from the first story and say we can stand up for those that are innocent, particularly when those innocents don't know something's going to happen, or maybe they don't have the power to protect themselves. These are the lessons that we have the opportunity to mine from this Torah if we do what we've asked Aaron and Ben to do. And Aaron and Ben, as the cantor said, we're so thrilled today because you are now bar mitzvah. You are now sons of the commandments. That's the translation of the word bar mitzvah. We can count on you as young adults now, we know, to do what you've done and to continue to do it so that our world can be filled with more blessing because of both of you. And we are feeling that this morning. We are feeling so blessed to know you. Even those of us that don't know you, we have friends visiting from St. Paul, Minnesota, and we're so glad you're here, by the way. 10th through 12th graders, is that right? Or 9th through 12th graders? 11th and 12th graders, right, all right. They said to me, the rabbi is here, Rabbi Adam, he said to me, we want to come and we want to learn from the bar mitzvah students. That's what they could have gone other places and say, we want to be here to learn from the B'nai Mitzvah. I was like, wow, that's my job, a confirmation class and a rabbi. They came not to learn from me, they came to learn from you. There's a lot to learn from you. And we are so proud of you today. And we're so excited for what you'll continue to bring to us as you go forth with much more engaging in Torah to do, with much more looking at the stories of our people, looking at the stories of our world and trying to figure a way how to help those that are close to you and those that you don't even know. I'm going to invite you now up to the ark for a private blessing. I know I'm not the only one who has a private blessing for you, so we'll invite the congregation to rise. If you're able, share the blessing you have in your heart for these young men at this time.
May your right hand bring you closer to your godliness. May your left hand give you strength to face each day. And before you may your visions light your paths ahead. And behind you may well-being heal your way. All around you is Shekhinah. All around you is Shekhinah. All around you is Shekhinah. All around you is Shekhinah.
We return to our prayer books to page 282 in the middle of the page for Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר ראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי ארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהר, וגורלנו ככל עמונה, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני
We're about to recite the words of Mourner's Kaddish. As we do, we take into our hearts the names of dear ones from our community who have died in recent days. June Clayman, mother of Liz, Danielle, Holly, and Shoshana. David Finn, husband of Laura and father of Kathy, Amy, Dinah, and Peter. Marion Glick Glosserman, wife of Michael and mother of Mark and Scott, sister of Howard. Ashley Goodman, daughter of Karen and Mark, and sister of Parker. Everett Lawton, husband of Suzanne and brother of Robert, Jeffrey, and Andrew. Bernard Roy, father of Dylan. Ronald Sussman, husband of Cheryl, and father of Bradley and Melissa. And we also remember Buddy Greenwald. If you're saying Kaddish this morning for someone, I'll invite you to say their name out loud at this time, or if you prefer, within your own heart. We say Zichronam Livracha, may their memories always be for blessing. Mourner's Kaddish is on page 294. Yit Gadal, V'yit Kadash, Shemei Rabbah, B'yama Divrach, Hurite, V'yamlich Malchute, B'chayachon, V'yomachon, V'chayid Echol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala, Uzman Kariv, V'yimru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mavarach Leolam Umei Almaya, Yit Barach, V'yishtabach, V'yit Pa'ar, V'yit Romam, V'yit Naseh, V'yit Hadar, V'yit Alev, V'yit Halal, Shemei Kudsha, B'richu, Leila min kol brachata v'shirata, tush brachata v'nechemata, dam miram b'yama v'yimru, Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru, Amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru, Amen.
Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
Okay, I'm going to invite Aaron and Ben up to the front, as well as we're so lucky that Aaron's aunt, Rabbi Dana Soroka, is with us today. She's going to, after our closing song, share a benediction with us. So come on up, Rabbi. And I just want to thank our musicians who filled our sanctuary with song, our ushers, our shamashim. We're really grateful for your help, for our staff of the synagogue who just make sure that we can be here today in this sanctuary, but also online with all of you that are joining us, and we're so grateful. And we're so grateful for both of you. We're going to end our service in song. Cantor, what do you want to close our service with?
A song of joy and gladness and light, La Yehudim. La Yehudim, Hayta Ora, B'simcha, B'saso.
Mazal Tov. So I'm imagining that there isn't a family member that's here with you today that hasn't felt, at least over the process of you walking to become a bar mitzvah or throughout somehow this day, that feeling of where did the 13 years go? And I'm imagining that there have been snapshots going through everyone's minds, sort of marking all of those special moments of 13 years of your lives. So in many ways, this is the milestone which marks your transition from childhood into adulthood. And I have two scenes that sort of pop into my mind. The first one is this beautiful moment from the book The Giver. And Lois Lowry actually sort of depicted the scene where the community gathered together, all of the community members and the children, and one of the leaders stepped forward and she said, "We want to thank you for the gift of your childhood." And I feel like that is the essence of today. It's thanking our kids, you Aaron and you Ben, for the gift of your childhood and having the privilege of being a part of that journey with you. And then I was thinking today as I was listening of one other scene, which was a scene, the opening scene from Hamilton. Aaron, I know you saw that. Ben, did you have a chance? Okay. So I don't know if you remember this moment, but when Lin-Manuel Miranda and the rest of the cast came onto the stage, before they even started, every person in the audience just sort of went wild in cheer. And I remember thinking to myself at that moment, like, wow, what a way to start. What a way to start. And then thinking to myself, if only the rest of life worked that way, where you show up and everyone applauds, you know? But this is really, for us, the opportunity to applaud you as you both end and begin again. And you should know that every person here today and all of those who are live streaming, that we're all cheering so loud for you and for what adulthood will and can be. So may our Jewish traditions and our rituals continue to guide you and to anchor you. May our Torah and Jewish wisdom continue to guide you and inspire you and be meaningful in your lives. And may our Jewish community always be a place that you can return to for belonging. And may you always hear the quiet cheers of all of us, cheering you on today and for the rest of your lives. And to that we say, Amen.
Amen. Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom Rabba Yisrael Amcha Al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam Ki Ata Hu Melech Adon Adon Lechol Hashalom טוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך Shalom Rava Yisrael Amcha Al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam Ki Ata Hu Melech Adon Adon Lechol
שירו לאדוני שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני ברכו שמו, פסמו מיום ליום ישועתו. שירו לאדוני שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני ברכו שמו, פסמו מיום ליום ישועתו. ספרו בגויים כבודו, בכל העמים נפלאותיו. כי גדול אדוני ובקולו מאוד, ברוך הוא הכל אלוהים. שירו לאדוני sheberach avoteinu mekor habracha leimotenu.
May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us,
Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Hashkiveinu, Adonai, Eloheinu, Lishalom, Lishalom. Hashkiveinu,
Ya la 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 la, sing with us. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Ma tovu, ma tovu, oh alecha Yaakov, Yaakov. Ma tovu, ma tovu, ma tovu, ma tovu. Mishknotecha Yisrael, Yisrael. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la.
Shabbat Shalom. What a gorgeous day it is today in New York City for many reasons. Yes, it is crisp and beautiful outside, but also inside here in our sanctuary, we are feeling warmth and love on a special Shabbat morning because we have two co-leaders that are going to help us fill this space with wisdom and joy and thoughtfulness. And we'll introduce you both in a moment, but I want to welcome everyone who's here in the sanctuary, also here in the sanctuary through our live streaming, and say Shabbat Shalom. I'm Mo Salth, joined by my colleagues, Rabbi Ari Lorge and our senior cantor, Daniel Mutlu. Our musicians are here to help us as well. Thank you so much. And we have greeters. We call them shamashim, welcomers who are here to help us. Thank you for doing that, Pam, and anyone else who is also here. Our staff, Steve, has been diligently making sure that everything's ready. Our technical staff is keeping me audible as well as streaming to all of you, so we're grateful for it all. And we're grateful to have two magnificent co-leaders. I want to invite Max and Ryan to stand up next to me for a moment. You'll get to see them shortly. Some of you have been lucky to know one of them. Maybe you're lucky to know both of them. How are you feeling this morning?
Good.
Good, all right. Max?
Good.
All right, I'm glad. Well, you certainly look good, and it's been such a privilege to study with you for many, many months. This has been really many, many years in the process. You could even say your whole lives have been part of getting us to this day, and we're grateful for it all, and we're looking forward to your help a little later in the service. You can take a seat. We're using this prayer book, which should be in the seats in front of you, or if you're in a row that has a gap, it's maybe underneath you, or you can find one. And we're going to turn to page 78 now. Our music and our prayers are meant to be read with your help. And we try to have melodies repeat, so even if you don't know the melodies, you can jump in. So we just encourage you to open up your hearts and open up your mouths and just join us, whether you know these prayers really well or just this is the first time hearing them. This time of Shabbat is a gift for us to take a break from the week that was and enter this space of Shabbat. On page 78, you'll find a prayer that connects to these ideas. It's called Elohai Neshama. In our tradition, we are taught that each of us has a soul that is pure. Now, we may not always feel that purity. We may be feeling that our soul needs a little bit of rehabilitation. Maybe we haven't been behaving that well. Maybe we just don't feel that great about ourselves. Well, this prayer every Saturday morning is part of that revitalization, to remind us that whether we may feel it or not, that it's true. Our tradition says within us is a soul that is pure.
Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorahi. 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 One of the first things, and Rabbi's right, we do thank God for our souls, and we thank God for the breath of life. And our souls and breath are connected in this mystical, magical way, and we can pray with that breath. We can sing with that breath. We can say thank you with that breath. And the psalmist on page 100 of your prayer books writes down all these ways that we can say thank you, all these ways that we can give praise to God through the playing of drums, to the playing of the stringed instrument, the playing of wind instruments, and you could see we have a few of them here, but all of you actually brought an instrument when you came into this space, and that is that very breath, your souls, your spirits, and your voices. So you're going to help us this morning to raise our prayers and our thanks even higher with only one word, and that word is a word that you've heard before, I guarantee you, hallelujah. And that is kind of a one-way stop to say, thank you so much, and you are so praised, God. So let me teach you this melody, and we'll all sing it together. So it goes like this. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Can you try that? Hallelujah, hallelujah. Beautiful. Then it goes, hallelujah, hallelujah. Try that. Hallelujah, hallelujah. And the last part, hallelujah, hallelujah. Try that. Hallelujah, hallelujah. That's all there is to it. Let's try the whole thing together. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. One more time. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Here's the first verse. Hallelujah, el bekocho, hallelujah, bikia uzo, hallelujah, bikurota. Hallelujah, Kerobudo. Hallelujah, here we go. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. But take a shofar. Hallelujah, but take a shofar. Hallelujah. בנבל חידון, הללו, בטוב ומחול, הללו, במינים ויוגב. הללו, 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 הללויה. הללו, 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 הללויה. Betzitzelei Shama, Hallelujah, Betzitzelei Shua, Kolat Shama, Te Hallelujah, 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 Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
With words of praise on our lips, we turn to page 108 for Baruch Hu, our call to worship. I'll invite you to please rise.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach Baruch Adonai HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam va'ed HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam va'ed.
Please be seated. Turn to page 110, where we find a blessing, a bracha, thanking God for the created world. And on this crisp morning, as Rabbi Salt said, as we notice lights shining down from all around, and in this beautiful space where it comes in through this window or that window, we sing together at the top of page 110, this blessing to God for all of the world and all that is within it.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzer or uvorei choshech oseh shalom uvorei et hakol Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzer Oseh shalom uvorei et hachosh Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzer or uvorei choshech Oseh shalom uvorei now on page 114 and 115, and you can see spread across those 2 pages the words of the Shema, the watchword of our faith. We declare with these words that God is one, and we ask everybody to hear these words. Well, to really hear them today, let's sing them in English first a few times so that the meaning could really permeate us, our hearts, our minds, and then we'll be ready to chant the Shema together in Hebrew. Hear, O Israel, Adonai, our God is one. That's all you need. We'll sing these words together. Hear, O Israel, Adonai, our God. Our God is one. Hear, O Israel, hear, O Israel, Adonai, our God is one. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem, Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha ve'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta b'ham b'shivtecha b'veitecha ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם בארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Page 122, 122 for Micha Mocha.
Ya la 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Micha Mocha ba'elim Adonai. Micha Mocha לדבר קודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, יא לה 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 יא לה 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 לה, יא לה 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 יא לה 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 לה, יא לה 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 יא לה 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 לה. שירה חדשה, שיפתחו גאולים, לשימך על שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו, והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני אלוה לעולם ועד. יא לה 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 לה, יא לה לה לה
We take time now for silent personal prayer to get us ready for Tefillah and Amidah in a few moments. We take this time for ourselves.
Behegion libi lefanecha Adonai Tzuri V'goali Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol Yoshvei We now turn to page 124 for our tefillah, and we'll ask you all to rise. Adonai, Sefatai Tiftach, Ufiyaki, Tehilatecha. Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor VaNorah, El Elyon, Negomel Chasadim Tovim, Bekonei HaKol, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, Baruch atah Adonai, Magin Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, b'chaim eitim atah rab lehoshia. Mashiv haruach u'morid hagashem, mechakel chaim b'chesed, mechaye metim berachamim rabim, tzomech noflim verofech cholim, u'matir asurim, u'mekayem emunato lishnei afar. Mi chamocha b'gevurot u'midomelach, melech memit u'mechayeh u'matzmiach Yeshua. V'ne'eman ata lahachayot metim, Baruch atah Adonai mechayeh hametim. נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשממרו, ככתוב על יד נביאך. וכרז אל זה ואמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ כבודו. אדיר אדירנו, אדוני אדוננו, מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ.
ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקום
אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו מלכנו, הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו, ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם. אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור. הללויה, 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 הללויה,
The light of Torah shines forth from Zion. Adonai's teachings flow from Jerusalem.
The scroll has nurtured our people from Sinai to today. It teaches us love, justice, hope, and peace.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo. Gadol Adonai iti, ונרוממה שמו יחדיו.
We're going to invite the congregation to be seated, except for our B'nai Mitzvah's parents and grandparents that are here today. We'll invite you forward onto the bima.
Lecha Adonai הגדולה והגבורה והתפארת והנצח והאור כי כל השמיים ובארץ לך אדוני הממלכה והמתנשא לכל ראש
It's so nice to see you with your parents and grandparents that can be here today as we're about to pass this Torah into your arms. Brian, we're also thinking about your grandpa Mark and your grandma Toby, and Max, your grandpa Lazar as well. We feel their presence on this very, very special day when you're standing next to the generations of your family. Today you get a new name, well, a new title, bar mitzvah. You don't have a bar mitzvah, you become a bar mitzvah. You become a son of the commandments. And it's in line with a tradition that is part of our stories. This Torah, which we're going to pass on to you, has a story of our ancestor Jacob getting a new name. His new name is Israel. Israel becomes the name of our people as well. And Israel means to wrestle with God. We are the people that wrestle with God. We are the children of Israel, which is pretty much what we've been doing. As student and teacher, we've been opening up the Torah, looking at the story, wrestling with what it means and how we might apply this ancient tradition to today. And you both have done it with such thoughtfulness. And Karen, we're going to get to hear you not only chant the Torah, but teach us as well. And as we prepare to pass this Torah to you, I'll say to you, we want you to continue being a wrestler. We want you to continue to embrace the Torah, not only hold it, but also take it in, and then with it, use it to bring more blessing into the world. We pass this Torah down from generation to generation to you both with so much love.
You are gifts, and you are blessings. You are history and song. You are hope, and you are healing. You are learning to be strong. L'tov Adon nagid godlecha. L'tov Adon, we protect this chain from generation to generation. L'tov Adon, these lips will praise your name. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu beishtachavu lehalakosho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu beishtachavu lehalakosho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu.
Far superior to you is an aspect of maturity. I'd imagine most of us, if not all of us, have had a certain time where we've had to negotiate with someone for something we desire. Abraham, like many of us here today, had negotiated for something he deemed right. In this week's Torah portion, Abraham was negotiating for the people of Sodom and Gomorrah to be spared. God wanted to kill the people of Sodom and Gomorrah for their wrongdoings, seeing as many of them were seen as unrighteous in God's eyes, for things from adultery, murder, sexual assault. Abraham asked God if there were 50 righteous people, he would save it, and God said yes. Abraham bargained this number down to eventually 10 after a long debate. Yet, there were not 10 righteous people who lived in these two towns, and God ended up destroying them. The only people who were seen as righteous were Abraham's nephew, Lot, and his family. that ended up escaping the carnage, but his wife ended up turning back and being turned into a pillar of salt. Everybody else within those towns died that day. This important part of the Torah teaches us important things on top of hundreds of other semi-important messages. One being to never look back, and two, more important one being to always stand up for what you think is right, even if someone superior to you is giving that order. Throughout the mid-20th century, the Soviet Union and the United States were in the midst of a, quote, feud. Many of you know what this feud was and might have even been alive back then. If you were alive back then, let me refresh your memory. If you were not, listen closely. The Cold War, a time of innovation, wars, political clashing, and weapons of mass destruction. The Soviet Union, now Russia, was a country in Eastern Europe and Asia. It was a major force throughout the mid-20th century and was a staunch rival of the United States, where we are today. Both sides were armed with weapons of mass destruction and still are to this day. Both sides would do something to, quote, threaten each other, and this would cause mass amounts of tension. Yes, I know this sounds like a history lesson, but it does relate to the story. The two sides would come together to loosen this tension and sign treaties negotiating peace in foreign lands or even for themselves. Similar to God and Abraham, one side wanted to change and they saw it happen. But unlike God and Abraham, both sides were almost equal. Again, you might be thinking, what does this have to do with the story? Well, negotiating doesn't always have to be with superiors. Negotiating can be with people higher or lower in, say, power. In the end, we all are humans. We all want something that probably someone else doesn't want. And that's quite all right. We just need to remember what keeps us together. How we're united, just how Abraham and God were united through the idea of a home for Jewish people to prosper. We are related by the drive to do best as an individual so the entire group can do best together. By being our best selves, we make everybody better and collectively the group gets better. Just think to yourself, how can I find ways to improve myself in the community by doing what is moral and just, even if it means defying authority? My Torah is taken from Parashat Vayera from the book Genesis, chapter 18, verses 23 to 33. For my first Aliyah, I call upon my dad, Craig, my grandfather, Paul, my uncle, Adam, my uncle, Jordan, and my uncle, Michael. For my second Aliyah, I call upon my mother, Kim, my sister, Kaylee, my grandmother, Janet, my aunt, Liza, and my aunt, Corey.
So everyone who's been called will come up right now. The first group will stand right next to me right here. The second group will stand next to the cantor. All right, so I'm going to invite the first group to come a little closer to me. Blessing before the first section of Torah is up here. We'll do it together. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamorach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai Noten Torah. Amen. God, can you hold this, please? Now we start here.
Vayigash Avraham, Vayomar ha'av tispeh, Sadiq imarasha, Ulai yesh, Hamishim tzadikim, Bito ha'ir, ha'av tispeh, Sadiq, Velo tisa, Lamakon, Leman, Hamishim hatzadikim, Asher bekirba, Halila laho, Me'aso kadavar hazeh lehamid tzadik imrasha v'chaya katzadik kadasha halila laha kol haaretz lo ya'aseh mishpat. Reading it backwards too.
You did really well. Very good. Okay, blessing after. 1, 2, 3. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah. Amen. Can you stay here? Switch places with these nice people to my left.
Yeah, I'm just gonna like.
You stay right there, okay. Just so they can sleep behind you. It's a traffic jam up here on the Bima. This is the best traffic jam we could find in New York City. And the rest who are in the first aisle stand next to the canner. And we're coming. All right, so same thing. We're going to start on 1, 2, 3, and you can all do it together. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Baruch Adonai Baruch.
Baruch Adonai Habarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kafarnu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Vayomer Adonai, im emsa bestom, hamishim sadikim, bito ha'ir, ben hasatzi lecho hamakom, va'uran, vaya'an Avraham, vayomer kinena, ha'alti, ledaber el Adonai, ve'anohi, afar va'efer, ulai, yaksrun, hamishim hatzadikim, hamisha hatashki, bahamisha ekol ha'ir, vayomer lo ashki, im emsa sham arba'im vehamisha, vayosethod ledaber elav, vayomer ulai yimetzun sham arba'im, vayomer lo e'eseh ba'uvor hamarba'im.
Nicely done. Blessing after. 1, 2, 3.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan לנו Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Okay, Ryan, give a hug to all the beautiful people. Yasher koach, everyone. You gotta get a hug from the bar mitzvah, it's required.
All right. Right, that's right. There is a lot going on.
It's a sign of a lot of love when the Talmud is over.
It's a lot going on, but it's a lot of good stuff, and you have really proven so far, and we know that you're going to prove for the rest of this day and for the rest of your time here at Central and with your community that you are ready. You are ready to become B'nai Mitzvah. And I love what you said about challenging authority. It's not just challenging authority for the sake of challenging authority. And you really, it was amazing. I don't know if you planned that, Rabbi, the struggling with God, Yisrael, and then here's this beautiful drash about, standing up to authority. And I remember when we talked about your B'nai Mitzvah and becoming B'nai Mitzvah and what it meant to you, that you were excited, you had excitement, but there was also, it was a little scary to think that, you're kind of making your way to this new era, this new version of yourself. And it's not easy to stand up to authority, right? And it's not easy to really challenge the conventions that came before you. Just like it wasn't easy for Abraham to do that in your beautiful Devar, but you've got the courage. Even though you know that it's a serious thing and it can be scary, you are strong and you are able. And you are showing us all that today as you become B'nai Mitzvah. So our wish and our hope for you is that you continue with that strength and you continue teaching everyone around you how to do that, how to work with people, and how to challenge authority when you need to. And we just thank you for being such a light in our community. We're going to call you now to the Torah for the very, very first time. Oh, here, I got your Hebrew name right here. By your Hebrew name, Ya'amod, 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 Habar Mitzvah, Tzvi Mendel Ben Safram Vigolda.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Sorry. Asher barbanu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah.
Amen.
Vayomer Adonai. Vayomer El na lihar le'Adonai va'adabeda ulai imetzun sham shiloshim vayomer lo e'ese imemsa sham shiloshim vayomer kinena ho'alti ledaber el Adonai ulai imetzun sham esrim vayomer lo ashki ba'uvor ha'esrim vayomer el na lihar le'Adonai va'adabeda achapam ulai imetzun sham asara vayomer lo ashki ba'uvor ha'asara vayelech kananai kasher kila ledaber el Avraham ve'Avraham shavlim komo. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher nantan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nantan b'Eloheinu. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah.
Amen. It's just one column over. Yeah. So I think it's another one. Hold on. Yeah. Oops. Yep. Sorry about that, Max. Come forward.
I will continue with chapter 19, verses 15 through 26. For my first Aliyah, I call upon my grandmother Rosa, my mom Joanne, and my aunt Magda. For my second Aliyah, I call upon my father Rich, my uncle Godfrey, my uncle Shalmu, my brother Charles, and my cousin Josh.
All right, so we'll invite you all up at this time. We'll hold this move for the messing, of course. Everyone, so we'll be using this text. I'm going to help you too. You'll come a little bit more behind us so that you can be close to Max. Good. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai.
Amen.
Uhmo ashar Allah vayitzu hamalahim belo lemor kum ka eshteha vechte venoteha hanin sa'ot pain tisafe ba'avon ha'ir vayit mama vayaziku הנשין, וידו וביד אשתו, וביד שתי בנותיו, והם לאדוני עליו, ויוציאוהו ויניאוהו מחוץ לעיר. ויהי כהוציאם אותם החוצה, ויאמר הימלא על נפשה, אל תביט הרעה, ואל תמות בהקר, הימלא פן תיספר. ויאמר לוט עליהם, אל נא אדוני.
All right, the blessing after. 1, 2, 3. Baruch atah Adonai
Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam natan b'tocheinu, Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen. Here. So you'll change positions with everyone that's over there. You come over to my side, please, or to this side. Wait a second. So you can stay close to Max here. You can come a little closer. That's good. All right. Ready?
Yeah, I go.
1, 2, 3.
Baruch et Adonai hamborach.
Baruch Adonai Hamorach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai hamborach leolam vaed. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu el toroto. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen. Which can I hold there?
Hinena matzah avdaha pein be'eneha v'tagdel hastaha asher asita imadi lehayot et nashi v'nahuhi lo uhal lahimalei haraha pentid bakani haraha v'amati. Hinena ha'ir hazot kroba lanu shema vehi mitzar imota na shama helos mitzar he of ti nafshi vayomer elav hine nasati fanaha gam ladavar hase hofki levilti et ha'ir asher dibarta maher himalay shama Kilo uhal laso devar aboha al kain kara shem ha'ir soar.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chai olam natan b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen. Okay, you can give a hug to all these beautiful people up here. Can you give a hug to this beautiful bar mitzvah? First,
Give me a hug.
first on the back. You're doing great, Max. Really tremendous. Congratulations, everyone. Congratulations. Come on over here so you can get a hug from your beautiful Max. Very nice. Thank you so much. Come over here now. We're going to have to fix your dolly. All right, good. You stand right there.
So, Max, here we are. We have arrived now at this special moment, Aliyah number 3, and that Aliyah is all yours. This is your Aliyah, and what that means is you get to say this blessing that your family has just said, and we know that you have to be a b'nai mitzvah to say those words and to say that blessing, and that's one of the ways that we can prove that you are ready, that you have arrived, and here you are. And I just know how special this moment is for your family and how much thought and care and love has been put into this moment right here. And so we share in that joy, we share in that care, and we just wish for you everything that you wish for you in your life to be a success, to continue to learn, to continue to teach this Torah, and that it will go well for you for many, 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 many days in this community and in your life. And so we call you now for the very, very first time as a bar mitzvah by your Hebrew name. Yamod, 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 ha-bar mitzvah, Eyal ben Yo.
Baruch Hu Adonai Habarah Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Hu Adonai Habarah Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Habarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Atah Adonai Habarah Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bahar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten ha-Torah.
Amen. Nicely done.
Hashemesh yatsa al haaretz v'lo batoara. V'Adonai himtir al Sodom v'Gomorrah gafrei va'esh me'e Adonai min hashamayim. V'yavhov et harim va'esh ve'et kol hakikar ve'et kol yoshvei harim ve'tzemeh ha'adamah. Mehaharav Vatabet Ishto Mehaharav Vativ Netziv Melech. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'hayei olam nata b'tehenu. Baruch Atah Adonai noten ha-Torah.
Amen.
Please rise.
V'zot ha-Torah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai beyad Moshe. Yalai lai 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 Yai lai 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 lai.
Please be seated.
I was very intrigued by the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. Lot and his family are settled down in a town called Sodom. Sodom is a horrible town with people who do really horrific things. However, Lot and his family are very established there. This is where it all begins. Two angels came to Lot's house in Sodom and warned Lot and his family that if they did not evacuate from Sodom, they would die as God destroyed the city of Sodom. They explained that God is destroying the city of Sodom due to the acts of evil the citizens have committed. However, Lot hesitated to leave Sodom. The angels decided to save Lot and his family by seizing him by the wrist and leading Lot and his family out of Sodom. There, the angels instructed Lot and his family to go into the hills. They also tell the family not to look back at the destruction that is about to occur. One thing that I found very interesting about my Torah portion was when the angel told Lot and his family not to look back. And I wondered, why were they given this direction? There are many possibilities behind the reasoning of why they were told this. Perhaps the angel thought it would be best for them, for Lot and his family, to leave that life behind them and start something new. Maybe the angel was trying to prevent Lot and his family from seeing the violence involved in destruction of Sodom. Today, there are lots of examples of people like Lot who have to make difficult decisions to leave some place even if they are attached to it. Even if it is a truly horrible place, such as Sodom, change is never easy and oftentimes frightening. Change is one of the hardest and best things that someone will run into many times in a lifetime. One example of this could be as simple as moving somewhere new. When I was 5 or 6, I came home one day and my mom broke the news to me that we were moving to Chelsea. At the end of the day, it was the best decision. It was closer to school, the apartment was bigger, and it was just the best decision. However, when I was initially faced with the news, I was in tears and very upset. Even though it was not that far from where I lived in the moment, it was a long distance for me. When you are that young, you do not leave your neighborhood that often, so moving neighborhoods is like changing your whole world. Looking back, I would offer my younger self some advice. It would be to be brave, embrace change, and look at the positives. As I would later find out, the apartment move was one of the best changes in my entire life. As I go forward, I hope that when I am presented with change, that I embrace it. Even though change is often viewed as bad, change is a good thing. I think people should embrace change and view it positively. Without change, our lives would be the same thing over and over again. In addition, change pushes us out of our comfort zones and forces us to do things we would never normally do. This helps us grow as a person and makes us learn new skills. At the end of the day, change is very hard. However, oftentimes this is change that you can control and say yes or no to. The most stressful thing that someone could encounter is change they cannot control. This is when it is 100% out of their control and there is absolutely nothing that they can do about it. The best thing that you can do is embrace it and accept it as a new challenge. In conclusion, I hope that we all embrace change, and when it's presented, we push ourselves to be the best person that we all can be. The Haftarah for this week is taken from the book of 2 Kings. I will be reading from chapter 4, verses 1 through 5. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bahar benvim tovim, varatza v'devarim, hanei arim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'Torah u'Moshe avdo, u'v'Yisrael umo, u'nvim ve'haha emet v'tzadek.
Amen.
Ve'isha ahat min shei v'nehan ve'im sa'aka Elisha lemur avdaha eshi me ve'ata yadata ki avdaha haya yarei Adonai v'hanashet ba lakat et shnei yeladai lo la'avadim vayomer Elah Elisha ma esela hakidili maish laha vabayit vatomer en lashfikta ho babayiki im savu shamen vayomer Lahi shalia kelim min hahutz me'et kol shalia kelim rekim altamiti uvat vaskrata hadlet ba'adet uvad bayani vayasakol al kol haki kelim ha'ale vehemale tasi Vatialet mito vitzigor hadlet ba'ada uvad baneha haim makasheim aliyah behi motzeket. Thanks. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
I will continue with chapter 4, verses 32 to 37. Vayavo Elisha habayita v'hine hanar me mushkav al mitato. Vayavo viskor hadelet ve'ad shanehem. Vayit palel Adonai. Vaya al vayish kav al hayeled vayahasim. Piva piv ve'enav al ne'av. Lechapav al kapav vayi ha'elav. Vayacham bisarv hayeled. Vayashov vayelech babayi. Achat hene vachat. Hene v'yai al vayik ha'elav. Vayzorer hana'ad. Sheva pa'amim vayifkach hanar be'enav. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, tzurko halomim, tzadik b'chol hadorat, ha'il hanei emen, ha'omir v'oseh, hamdeber im kayim, shekol davarav em v'tzadek, al ha-torah v'havodah, v'al hen v'im, v'al yom ha-shabbat, hazeh shenatata, Lana Adonai Eloheinu, lechadusha v'alim nacha, lashavad ultafaret, achako Adonai Eloheinu, anachnu modem lach, umbarim hu etach, yitbirak shimcha bifeko, chaytimid lech olam, va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, mekedesh ha-shabbat.
Amen. Wonderful job. Ryan, don't go anywhere just yet. And we're going to call Max to rejoin you here at the Bima because you have accomplished something that is really, really remarkable and fantastic. And looking out here at this congregation of your family and friends, you can just feel the joy, you can feel the pride, and we want to just capture this moment and celebrate together what the two of you have done so beautifully. So we're going to ask everybody to rise, and we'll sing Siman Tov u'Mazel Tov. Siman Tov, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, Siman Tov, Siman Tov, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, Siman Tov, Siman Tov, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, Siman Tov, Yeheladu. Yehelanu, Yehelanu, O lechol Yisrael. Yehelanu, Yehelanu, O lechol Yisrael. Yehelanu, Yehelanu, O lechol Yisrael. Yehelanu, Yehelanu, O lechol Yisrael.
Please be seated. When I was young, my family was fond of the restaurants where you had the temporary placemats that had the games on them to play. Do you know what I'm talking about? Maybe we went to the same restaurants, I'm not sure. And one of the favorite games I had on these placemats was, I guess it still is a favorite game if I'm lucky enough to get a placemat like this. Look at these two pictures and determine what's different from one picture compared to the other. Do you know this game? Like look at one, look at the other, what's the differences here? And we can play that game in this week's Torah portion. Our B'nai Mitzvah are very familiar. There's a lot of stories in this week's portion. You shared a few of them about our patriarch and matriarch, Abraham and Sarah. And one of them you focused on that I want to focus on today. That's the first story in the game of the picture on the placemat. By the way, I never had biblical story pictures in my restaurants, but maybe this is an idea for us. We could team up together after Shabbat. We can talk about this. Okay, so the first story is the one you talked about, Sodom and Gomorrah, and this rather remarkable event with Abraham Ryan talks about questioning authority. Abraham questions, you'd say, the ultimate authority, right? God. And this challenge is seen as quite positive by our tradition. One commentary says that Abraham's challenge to God is rooted in the audacious claim that God is subject to the moral standards that God decreed for humanity. So in this commentary, the Eitz Chaim commentary, it's saying that God is being held to God's own standard by Abraham, which is really a fascinating idea that our tradition is accepting of the idea that we have a relationship with God like that. We have a relationship with power like that, like you spoke about, Ryan. And another commentary, that the Talmud says that this encounter between God and Abraham, where God agrees finally to only say 10 people, if we can find 10 people, we'll save these cities. It's a story which says that because of this story, the descendants of Abraham are characterized by 3 traits: a capacity for kindness, having a sense of morality, and a commitment to doing what is right. So this story is seen quite positively throughout our tradition. The second picture on the placement that I want to focus on, we did not talk about today, but many of us know this story. It's called the Binding of Isaac. The story of the Binding of Isaac is in this story, in this portion. And in this story, God, it says, puts Abraham to the test. And God says to Abraham, take your precious son, Isaac, and take him to a place 3 days journey from here, and ritually sacrifice, meaning kill your child in connection with our relationship. And Abraham gathers a small group of his staff, takes Isaac with him. They travel to this place for 3 days. Abraham goes up with Isaac to this mountain spot. Isaac even says, Dad, I see we got the wood for the place where we're going to do this. I see you got like matches and a knife, but where's the sacrifice, Dad? And Abraham says, oh, don't worry, God will provide. And when they get there, the story says in this week's Torah portion, Abraham actually ties his son to the place where he's going to do this sacrifice. Abraham actually raises a knife above the son's head, Isaac's head. And then an angel comes and says, no, Abraham, stop. You should not even lay a touch on this beautiful child. Instead, there's a ram caught in the thicket. Ritually sacrifice this ram. So this is the second story we want to counter here to the first story. So now let's play the game, okay? What's different between the first story and the second story? What do you notice as being noteworthy about the two different stories? Oh, this is where you get to tell me your thoughts on this. So brave souls, what do you notice between this? What would you say is noteworthy to you? I'll give you some help. Oh, here we go, yes. Ken, right? What was in Abraham's mind? Which one?
Why would he sacrifice?
Why would he sacrifice that? Especially knowing that in the first story, Abraham says, yeah, God, what are you doing? Do you want to destroy these towns? Let's talk about this, yeah? Second story, Abraham, bubkiss, goes right ahead. What was in his mind? How could Abraham defend and protect these 2 cities? You could say, oh, he knew his nephew Lot in one of the cities, right? But no one else. And in the second story, it's his son, not only his son. Many of us know that Abraham was just desperate with Sarah to have a child, and now God's saying to Abraham, you should sacrifice this child. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, these 2 things are really different. And commentary on the second story, for example, of the binding of Isaac, Maimonides, one of the greater commentators in our tradition, Maimonides says, God tested Abraham precisely because God knew that Abraham would pass the test. that Abraham's faith would shine like a beacon to be a sign to the nation. So there's many commentators who say that this was a test of faith, and Abraham passed the test of having faith in God. I would call that rabbinic gymnastics, because you're shaking your head. Why are you shaking your head? What's in Abraham's mind? Because why? Why would you think Abraham would do?
I'm asking, you're the chacham.
No. You're the chacham. Chacham means the wise one. What would you think Abraham would do with the second story when God says, sacrifice your son? If I was Abraham, I wouldn't do it. Of course not. This is horrible. I just can't contain myself. And I think it's because I see Ryan and Max, and I'm like, look, these most beautiful people. How could Abraham even think about it? It's like, it bothers me. And especially when you know that he did it for these other towns. So these gymnastics, Abraham was being faithful. It's like, oh my gosh, like, what's going on here? Rashi, another beloved commentator from over 1,000 years ago, writes in his commentary, he actually quotes an older commentary that says that it only appeared to Abraham that God asked him to sacrifice Isaac. That God really was saying, I didn't say sacrifice Isaac, I said bring Isaac up. If you look at the Hebrew, it says, the same word we use for calling people to the Torah, we call it an aliyah. So I didn't say sacrifice him, I said call him up to the mountain, and you took him to the mountain, and now you should take him down. Which is a neat commentary, but that's not actually what's going on in the story. Like I said, this is rabbinic gymnastics. So what have we asked you both to do, and really what we ask all young adults to do, right? We say when you become bar mitzvah, you're entering young adulthood. We ask ourselves to use our minds, to take the lessons we've learned from our families, from our traditions, from our society, and apply them to what's going on. So you saw my reaction a few minutes ago. I'm not the only one. Our Rabbi Emeritus, Rabbi Peter Rubenstein, says Abraham failed the test. And he's disgusted with Abraham that he didn't protect his son. And I think that makes sense. I think even these commentators were like, we don't know what to do here, but we're going to be respectful of the Torah. We'll give you these creative solutions. So one way to look at this text from a sophisticated way, which some of you might know, is that the nations and the people surrounding ancient Israel, the ancient ancestors of ours, were engaging in child sacrifice. They actually have found, sadly, the remains of children who are in like similar spots in different parts of the Middle East, in like certain sections, and there's a sense that these were the places where people, not our ancestors, but our ancestors' neighbors, were actually sacrificing their children for their pagan gods. And that what's going on in this story is a way to tell anyone who's connected to the Jewish team, we don't do that. And the story is dramatically told that we almost do it, and then Adonai says, don't do it, never do it, we don't do it, and then we, potentially scholars would say, took from that, okay, even if the neighbors are sacrificing their children, Jewish people will never do that, which I think is a good likelihood of what's going on here in the Torah. But the Torah doesn't say that. There's no asterisk that says, oh, by the way, the neighbors were killing their children. This story is so that our ancestors didn't kill our children. We have to deduce that ourselves. And then we have to do something which is a little more challenging. We have to say, oh, it's in the same Torah portion as the one where Abraham negotiates with God about Sodom and Gomorrah. That's the type of Abraham. Those are the qualities that we want to lift up and take as ourselves, And we want to be able to speak to power and stand up for what's right, even if you're doing it against authority. When it comes to the story of Abraham and Isaac, those are the behaviors we never want to find ourselves doing. We never want to be in a position where we're putting, whether it's our child or someone who's dependent on us, or even just another loved one, in a position where they could be harmed, like Abraham did. And we can do both. We can do both. We can look at these texts, even though it's the Torah, even though it's a revered text, we don't have to look at it and say, oh, everything that's in it we should be doing. We could actually do, what I'm suggesting is look at a story and do the opposite. Take a lesson from the behavior. This actually happens a lot in the Torah. By the way, the Torah has a lot of stories of siblings who war and fight with each other. The lesson is not to war and fight with your sibling, just in case you're wondering. It's the opposite, right? Not that you guys have to worry about that. You guys know how important it is to love and care for each other. But as another example of what's in there. So this is what we're asking us to do as people who look at this text, to look at it from a sophisticated way, to challenge it, to question it, and then to go forth and take the lessons from it to do good. Because guess what? This world needs good. And that's another reason why, Max and Ryan, we are so thrilled today, because you are good doers, and we can count on you to do good. And you're at this stage of transition, of exiting childhood, entering young adulthood, where we're going to ask of you to do more good in your own circles, in your families, in your schools, in your clubs, and really going forward. And boy, are we excited about that, and thank goodness, because we really need you both so bad to continue to bring what you've already been bringing, so much goodness and blessing into this world. So I'm going to challenge you, and really all of us, to continue to look at the stories of our tradition, to look at our text critically, to take lessons from it, to not just say, oh, well, look at Abraham. Like, okay, that's not a big deal. Instead, really try to get some lessons from it. These are ancient wisdom stories after all, but it's up to us to engage in them, to take the wisdom. I'm going to ask you to continue to do this now that you've become bar mitzvah. Continue to engage in our tradition, and most importantly, then to use it to engage for good, for more good in our world, which we are so sure you will both do. I have a blessing, a private blessing I want to share with you up in front of the ark. I'm not the only one who has a blessing for you today. We all do. So as I rise the congregation and we open the ark, I invite you to share that blessing in your heart for these two remarkable young men. And then later, you can tell them your blessing one-on-one. Come with me.
May your right hand bring you closer to your godliness. May your left hand give you strength to face each day. And before you may your visions light your paths ahead. And behind you may well-being heal your way. All around you is Shekhinah. 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 תחילה.
We're on page 282 for our concluding prayers in the middle of our page, starting with Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
As we prepare for words of memory, I read this poem on page 291 by the Israeli poet Hannah Senesh, and she said, Yesh kochavim, there are stars up above. So far away we only see their light long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. And the stars that light up the darkest of nights, these are the lights that guide us. We read with love names of dear ones connected to this community who have died within the past 30 days. June Clayman, David Finn, Marilyn Glick Glosserman, Ashley Goodman, Everett Lawton, Bernard Roy, and Ronald Sussman. And on this joyous day, we remember your family's dear ones, Mark Finkelstein and Toby Wiener, and Eleazar Ben Yerahom, And if you are remembering a loved one today that you would like to say their name out loud before we say Kaddish or in your heart, so I invite you to do so at this time. We turn to page 294 and say, Zichronam livracha. May their memories always be for blessing as we recite these words of Mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, v'yamad yivrach yuteh v'yamlich malchuteh, v'chayachon v'yomachon v'chayidachol beit Yisrael, v'agala v'izman kariv v'yimru. Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah V'rach Le'olam Omei Almaya Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitba'ar V'yitramam V'yitnaseh V'yitadar V'yitalev V'yitalal Shmei D'Kudsha Brichu Le'elam Min Kol Brichata V'shirata Tishbachata V'nechamata Damiram B'yama V'yimru. Amen. Yehei Shlomo Rabbah Min Shemaya V'chayim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'yimru. Amen. Say shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen.
Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ועל כל ישראל יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל.
We're going to invite Ryan and Max back forward as we prepare to close our service. Again, I want to thank all that helped make it possible. And mostly, I want to thank both of you for all your effort and your commitment and your beautiful families for helping to fill this synagogue with such beauty and light. Cantor, how would you like to close the service?
You said light. That's the key word. So we're going to sing La Yehudim Haita Ora. They had light. And let's sing that together. La Yehudim Haita Ora, Haita Ora, V'simcha v'sason v'ikar. La Yehudim Haita Ora, Haita Ora, V'simcha v'sason v'ikar. Ken tiye lanu, ken tiye lanu, tiye lanu, tiye lanu.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.